Hello, it's Eric from E.M.B.R, and today we are doing Tour de Zwift Stage 3, the standard ride, the Magnificent 8. This is a new route on Zwift recently, about 29 kilometers, 156 meters of elevation, most of that on a little bit of a rise on hilly KOM Reverse or Zwift KOM Reverse. And as always with the Tour de Zwift, I'm looking for the race at the front because you can usually find one. So let's get it started. For those of you that are new to the channel, first off, welcome. But second off, I normally time-lapse the slower parts of the race and then put in chapter markers at the bottom for anything exciting that's happening and slow that down to normal speed. Always include the whole race just to show what it was like front to back, but yeah, try to make it a little bit more consumable for everyone. So again, follow the chapter markers, those sorts of things, and enjoy. And as it regards this race, it was pretty calm in the beginning, always a fast start in Zwift, but beyond that, we mostly settled in, started talking about weather, which I'll share a picture here. Snow in Florida recently, where I live. This is Pensacola, Florida. Snow on a white sand beach. Something you don't see every day or lifetime. But anyways, something to enjoy while we go time lapse this. But I will pick it up when we get to the first bump in the road, the dirty Sorpresa. And because of the small rise on the Sorpresa as well as the reduced rolling resistance, usually you got to kick up a little bit of power in order to stay with the pack, and that's what we're doing here. And this definitely puts me into sort of the orange and red numbers from a watt perspective, but nothing too severe in this race. Just severe enough that I'm noticing something's wrong with my heart rate.
My heart should be higher than that right now.
But I give it a little adjustment here, and it eventually does kick back to where it should be in the race. I'm not sure what was going on there, but it's all good. After that, the pace is honest, but not too bad until we get to the bottom of Zwift KOM Reverse. And this climb is kind of slow and gradual. It's not that steep. You can keep the pace pretty good, and if you can stay in a wheel, you can pick up draft most of the way as well. You can see I'm sitting at 80, 90 watts here. Getting to the steeper section, that'll come down a little bit, but still you'd prefer to be in somebody's wheel. We've got somebody pushing hard off the front here though, and it's early in the race, so not necessarily that concerned about someone getting away. But it is Tour de Zwift, and sometimes these front groups will fragment as you go. Right now we're 30 something. I don't expect it to stay 30 something, so trying to stay a little bit on the front. I do pop a feather here on this section, but the guy in the front's pushing pretty hard, 6.8, 6.9, 7, and here I am nose in the wind, not where I want to be, and trying to make a decision, is it worth chasing or not chasing? You see my power comes down and I kick it back up in the orange. Sherritt comes by here and I'm thinking, well, if they'll push, I have no problem chasing in their wheel because that's the same as anything, right? I just don't want to be leading the chase, but we're not really putting a dent in. Brian's still north of 5. Sherritt kind of, he's on it, not on it. He starts to go, and I'm like, okay, man, we got someone to chase. I'm not actually sure why. There we go. I finally do kick up, but you got to make a decision and snap on this. Otherwise, I'm not in Sherritt's draft either. That would have been an ideal point to go. I didn't.
Not following my own advice.
All things being the same, I should have chased and been on Sherritt's wheel there. But now I'm not. And I'm in this no man's land of is the descent going to be enough? These little things. Do I push hard? I'm just trying to make a decision this early in the race. Will the group chasing the descent, should I let that go or not? And I don't want to be doing too much work. Is kind of where I end up settling. So Olsen comes by from SRT, and I'm like, maybe we'll just sit here, not really go. But Sherritt keeps pushing, and he's bridging up to O'Brien. So now instead of a 1 away, you can let someone dangle and die out there. You've got a 2 away. And that's not necessarily good. In a race like this, those two, they ride good power. They could stay away, especially if we're sitting back here. They're up there in the 5 watt per kg, and we're sitting down here in 3 and 4. That gap will build. But don't really want to put in effort. Just hoping on the descent, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, that definitely a decision point there. Probably could have managed better. But sure enough, 2 away, even with us. I think now I'm in a group of 8, so not that big, 8 versus 2, but they're keeping their pace fairly solid up there. And as we come down the descent and start to move towards the flats, that gap is not really shrinking. It's 10, 11 seconds. I'm not really trying to cover that gap, though, put my nose in the wind, but it's one of those things that, like, hey, this could be first and second going away if we're not careful. But I'm settling, and then finally someone pops a sprint, and you fool me once, fool me twice. This time I'm snapping to the wheel, I'm getting on that, and I'm looking to bridge with some help. And this is a solid launch by Dobbs, which is why I snapped to it. I mean, when he used the arrow, I knew he was serious about it. I will say, that's one thing he did that I wouldn't do is throw the arrow out. I clutched this arrow like it's nobody's business for the finish. But he put in a good effort, so I'm going to return the favor. I want to close the gap here, trade pools with Dobbs, and he's doing his good work as well, which I'm going to compare this to what's going on up front. They're still pushing good power, but O'Brien is doing all the work. If you notice, Sherritt's name never jumps in front of O'Brien's. I'm now back here, though. Dobbs and I are trading pools. I'm back up at the front again. Again, we're trading honest pools. But yeah, right now you can see O'Brien pull. And this cracks me up because Sherritt's like, nah. And O'Brien's like, okay then. But yeah, because they're not working well together, O'Brien's driving the bus and Sherritt just along for the ride, Dobbs and I are able to make a catch. It's just, you either work together and stay away or you don't, right? But pretty soon here we'll be 4 up. And I kind of told a fib here when I said we'll be 4 up. Yeah, we're going to be 4 up, but not in the way you expect, because O'Brien got a little miffed, you can tell, at Sherritt. He's like, all right, you're not going to work? I'm off on my own then. And so we're 3 up, right? No. Olsen behind us, who you didn't see because my picture was in the way, he bridged the gap in the air and made it to us. So we're 4 up, but O'Brien's off on his own. And now Sherritt, who wouldn't work before, suddenly found legs and an arrow power up, which he again gambled at the banner. I get you want to use a power up to get the new one. Still wouldn't have thrown an arrow away there, but anyways, Sherritt now, who wouldn't work earlier, is having to put his nose in the wind and push hard to close the gap. And I'm more than happy to follow him. But yeah, I made my mistakes early. I'd say Sherritt made some mistakes there early. O'Brien, yeah, hey, if someone would have worked with him, probably been fine. But now we're more than 4 up. We're 5 up, and there's a 15, 16 second gap, it looks like, to the next 5 behind us. But yeah, from here, if we could work together, and we'll see, given what's gone on previous to this, some of us will, some of us won't, might be the case. But my goal here is to just try to do some work, and hopefully we've got a gap of 5 away and see what happens.
It's below freezing on my porch, but the pace is scorching. I'm alright letting him cook, man. Or win if he can do that all the way. Second one that goes, I gotta follow though.
But yeah, that's the difference between 1 away and 2 away. I mean, I know O'Brien can push. We've seen it, but he's been pushing all race. I'm all right letting him dangle out there. We'll watch the gap. But yeah, if the second person goes, I will follow for sure. Yeah, but I'm just settling in at this point. I'm not looking to do work. Just looking to stay in draft. Dobbs makes a little bit of a push. I'll follow that in case he's going to try to really close the gap. But O'Brien is pretty much staying hard. So there's a little bit of circular pulling going. I'm not that concerned, like I said before, about O'Brien. So I'm not really looking to do a ton of work here. Sometimes I work, sometimes I don't. Depends on the state of the race. But here I'm just sitting in, watching, trying to make sure. Now I see a feather go, though. And that, to me, that's a power-up usage and someone up on pace. Share it again, I will snap to that wheel. I'm not letting 2 up the road again without being on it, and I don't want to be waiting too long to chase Sherritt to where my nose is in the wind. I want to catch his draft all the way back up to O'Brien. Could be a little bit tighter, but yeah, that's the main thing here is someone else wants to cover this gap. Absolutely, all day. That was what I was waiting for. We had enough race time left that I could be a little patient, and yeah, it works out. But 4 of us back on his wheel again. O'Brien is neutralized for the moment, so we just sort of start settling in a little bit of zone 2 again. No one's really pushing. Still have a pretty good gap if you look at 25 seconds or so to the gap, plus 5 to the next 5. So it seems pretty safe. And then suddenly I realize, looks like Pog is chasing. You'll see what he means by that in a second. Yeah, the group behind us, there's someone driving that bus. Despite the famous Pog chasing us, though, we just settle into blue and gray and mostly chill out, but the gap is coming down and down and down. It's gone from 20 to 15 to 12 to 11 to 10, and yeah, we're on it. You know, Brian, seeing that, he definitely gets off to the front again, starts pushing 5 watt per kg. I'm still not necessarily that concerned. Be honest, I wasn't watching how closely or how hard that group of 7 behind us was pushing. And that gap, though, does start to come down. 9, 8, 7, like, damn, they're really pushing hard. I even get out to the front, but probably a little slow on that. And reality is, HasePogawa, the Japanese Pog. Yeah, right past it. 6 watt per kg, just jamming. And he keeps going. I'm like, that's suspect. He's been pushing that hard, driving, and he's just smart. If he's got the legs, just keep jamming. He can break us, but yeah, I just new bus driver. Okay, whether it's legit or not, I'm like, I don't even know. But I'm attaching myself to that taxi at this point. And he's really hammering. I mean, he's north of 6, and actually Sherrod's helping a little bit as well, surprisingly. But Hasegawa is pushing 6.5. Plus, I'm sitting back here at 4 and 5. I'm drafting, man. But that pace, if you're not in the draft, it seems to have caught some people out. So as we get into the descent here, we're not a group of 12 anymore. We're down to 7 and 4. Look at the map, a couple more like sort of dangling off the back. If someone wants to push that hard 5 and 6, you definitely need to be in the draft. It's sort of the lesson there. Or if you get in air, it's going to be super hard to catch back on. But yeah, descent, we seem to have done the job. We're down to, looks like 7, maybe a little bit less again, because it's sort of merging those 2 that are off the back on the map. We're really closer to 5, and we'll see if those other 2 can catch back on.
Hasegawa's nonsense. On a spin bike or something. Just pinned at 6.6, 6.1, 6.8.
And I try not to say those sorts of things, but reality is he's not in Zwift power. There's no heart rate, there's nothing. And he's had to average that power closing the gap and now still pushing. Let's just say there's a reason someone said it looks like Pog's chasing us. It's suspect.
As long as it doesn't drop me on the way, he has no sprint.
And I say that last bit because as impressive as the power is on sustain, usually someone on a spin bike like that just has no resistance, no sprint. So as long as I can keep the wheel, it's all good. And very much on brand, he keeps the power 6+ watts per kg coming down this ramp into the tunnel on the flats here. Seems like what I expect. You know, he's gonna push 6+ the rest of the way. I just gotta stay in wheel, and then we set up for a sprint with the other folks that are with us. You know, and I'm thinking, yeah, it's gonna go well.
He slowed down. Wow.
Surprisingly, though, this is not on brand. Hasegawa slows down to something like 4 or something, something like Q.
2 bumps and like 600
I'm kind of surprised at that. I will say the end of this race, there is an uptick coming out of the tunnel and then another uptick right after before you hit the flat sprint. But I'm shocked that he actually slowed down, to be honest with you. And I guess, you know, spin bike or not, still human that's powering it, and maybe he needed a little rest. But yeah, settling in and just trying to watch it at this point. But he does keep it down. You know, the whole time that we're under this tunnel, he's sitting around 4. But as I expect, basically, once we start to hit the end of this tunnel, there is that uptick. And I fully expect he's going to pick up the power there. And so I'm definitely just watching wheels, ready to go. And sure enough, he's 5, 6, bang, right before it. He's back on the power again.
Gear here.
So I'm finding gears, getting up, making sure we don't get dropped on this. He's up to 8+. That's about the top end of where his power will go. We're all kicking a little bit higher up the hill. I don't want to get out in front, but it's hard to measure sometimes how hard someone's going to hit. So my nose almost comes to the front here. Sort of come back off the power a little bit, just getting wheels. At this point, 1.3 going. I'm just trying to set up the sprint, make sure we're here. There's one more uptick before we get to the flats, but I just I know Hasegawa is now going to be on it. Likely can't really get much north of 8 or 9 at the most. Don't know about the other 2, like Brian and Dobbs, how hard they can push. Everybody else is 10 seconds plus to the wind, so it's really about us 4. I know at least one of these guys can't sprint, The other two I'm not sure about. I'm just trying to stay in wheel and get a good position. But this one's a little bit odd here. I know again that Hasegawa can't sprint. Brian and Dobbs are just watching this pace. We've been at 8 something for a while now. I'm a little gassed. Heart rate's coming up, but can't let a gap hit here. 600 meters, getting down to where I'd like somebody to go so I can get after their wheel. They're kicking up a little bit, so I'm trying to close that gap, and I kick up a little bit because I saw Brian go orange. But there's just no sprint on him either. They're both at 7. Dobbs is kind of falling off the back. I don't even realize that at this point, but we get in 300 meters, and I'm like, well, I don't like to be first, but...
That was not a great sprint. But they gassed me leading into it. Unfortunately, I was not up against other sprinters. If you saw, this is happening. When I sprint, I'm pulling into my body, and especially if there's a lot of torque, that gear is a little big. I'm pulling up so hard that even this tank of a bike pops up. But usually it's stable. I'm dealing with similar watts, maybe a little less torque because the gear isn't quite as big. That gear was wrong. I was already high because of the chase, and then I upped it again. I should have stayed where I was. Could have found another gear down or so. Would probably been just right. Like I said, fortunately, the people that put me in that were all long power, not sprinters. So it turned out all right. Cooled down 40 kilometers, life is good. Rather pitiful. A little bit better, but fairly easy. Letting a break, actually this was the hills I think. Letting a break go, catching a break, chilling, devastation. That's a fairly good recap. Cool down, push lactic out. Oh, that's nothing, 30 minutes? Yeah, overall for the ride because the pace picked up at the end there. So Zwift Power, not surprisingly, Hasegawa not there. Jay Bryan also not there. I am glad to see Brendan Dobbs. He's the one that helped me close the gap. Good to see that he came in and got a second. And then here's the ride metrics from Intervals ICU. It's a great platform if you guys haven't seen it before. Definitely worth the check out. And then last but not least, thank you guys for taking the time to watch. I am trying to do a little bit better, take time to edit as well, but your time's valuable. Thank you for spending some of it with me.